It's kind of cold in here, right? All right, give somebody a hug then. No, I'm serious. Give somebody a hug. Well, it's family. Say, hey, cousin. Say, hey, auntie. All right. And we got multi-family movement sweatshirts. Of course, people asking for the black ones. You know, how do you get a black shirt, y'all? You got to close on something. You got to close on something. All right, cool. So next up, man, I got a friend of mine. I actually met him through Jake Taylor Jacobs. Jake just talked about him so well, and then we finally bumped into each other at another conference. And he's also a co-host of the Melon Money podcast. And as we were promoting the event, and I was sharing with him the vision of sharing online the vision of creating the wealthiest family in the world and us reaching $100 billion, he said, Julian, go look at my Instagram bio. Like, what do you mean? And so I go look at his Instagram bio, and guess what? He had the same exact mission, same numbers. And so when you vibrating at a certain frequency, you just naturally attract people who are in alignment with you. I hadn't seen his bio. I didn't steal that from him, you know what I'm saying? But it was divinely downloaded to both of us, and now here we are in community working together to try to achieve that vision, because this vision cannot be achieved by one individual alone. It's going to take a collective. And so everybody that is on this stage, and including all of you, you're all here because you're all part of that vision. George is a certified financial planner like Jacqueline. He's founded a venture capital company called Capital Wise, and I'm so happy to bring him up on stage. He's going to talk to you about how to achieve your independence 57% faster than the traditional advice. You know, 57% that's good. So that's 57% is turning a 50-year journey into about a 28-year journey, all right? So that's huge, because we know that time, as it compounds, is how we get there, yeah? All right, so with that, I want to welcome George Acheampong onto the stage. Please come on, brother.
Let's go!
Yeah.
What's up, buddy?
What's up, fam?
What's up, man? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. How y'all doing this morning? Good, good. It's a beautiful audience, beautiful audience. Glad to be here. Can everybody hear me? I'm assuming everybody can hear me okay? All right. So, make sure my technology is going good. All right, so as he mentioned, my name is George Acheampong, Charlotte native. Anybody in here from Charlotte, Queen City? It's a few of us. And I'm here to help you achieve financial independence 57% faster. Who wants to do that? Okay, amazing. All right, so here's what we're gonna talk about today. Number one, we gotta determine your why. Because oftentimes in the journey, people just want to accumulate money for the sake of accumulating money, but when they actually slow down and realize the purpose and the intention behind it, sometimes they have to recalibrate. So we want to figure out our why, right? And we can't hit a target that we can't see. So we want to find our freedom target. We're going to talk about the traditional path that I like to call the 40-40-40 plan, right? And we're going to talk about the difference between accumulation and cash flow, which is key in achieving this journey 57% faster. We're going to talk about a little concept that I like to call the macros of money, understanding how the economy and financial system works, because if you don't understand that, you're not going to be able to achieve financial independence, and then understanding how to supercharge your ability to build wealth. All right, so actually I was told to have about 30 minutes, not an hour, so we're going to be kind of moving through this, so hopefully y'all got some pen and paper and some notes, because I want you guys to pay attention to this. And I feel like if you take something away from this, you'll really be able to achieve your goals much faster than you originally had planned, okay? All right, so I am the co-founder and managing partner of a financial planning and investment advisory firm called Capital Wise. I'm the owner of a financial education community and platform called Melon Money. And my goal, similar to Julian, literally 100% in alignment, is over the next 10 years, I want to help 100,000 people of color achieve their first or next $1 million in net worth, so we can decrease the wealth gap by $100 billion. Is that good? Okay. All right, and some of you might not know me, and I don't really get a kick out of, sharing credibility, but we all can agree that the internet is a finicky place, right? You got gurus and people that say they've done things, and you kind of check their track record, and it's like, well, where's the proof, right? So I'm just gonna share a couple of things, a couple of highlights that I've been able to accomplish over the past couple of years, some outlets that you might recognize, some results that I've been able to achieve, so that you know when you're listening to me, you're listening to somebody who has a track record of actually helping people get there. All right? I actually thought this was funny because before I started my own firm, I was working for another company back in 2012, and I got Advisor of the Month April and May, I believe, of 2012. And so it was funny looking back because I was like, man, I've not only been doing this for like 10, 11 years, I've actually been halfway decent. So I thought that was pretty cool. All right, so why is this important to you? You want to build generational wealth, but maybe you don't have a generational wealth plan just yet. You know having money sitting in cash is literally costing you money due to inflation, right? And you need a strategic game plan to build wealth beyond your business if you're an entrepreneur, okay? So first, let's determine our why. In 2011, I was at a conference, and the young lady was on stage, and she told us that 1 billion drill bits were sold in 2011. And at the time, I guess I knew what a drill bit was, but I wasn't really thinking about it. And she said, let's assume that those drill bits were used to hang artwork in homes and offices all across the country because nobody actually wanted the drill bits. But she said, what would you say if I told you that no one actually wanted the artwork either? What they wanted was the feeling that they got when they walked in the room where the artwork was hung. And your money is the same way, right? You don't necessarily care about having $100,000 or $500,000 or $1 million. And you definitely don't care whether it's in a Roth IRA or a 401k or a brokerage account. What you've identified is that there's an ideal lifestyle that you want to live, there's people that you want to help, there's things that you want to do, and you believe that that is the amount of financial resources required to do that, right? And so those pieces of artwork are actually in my living room. But I wanted to share that with you because oftentimes we get caught up in the wrong details, right? We're thinking about like, oh, I care about how much money I need to have. Oh, I care about having a certain account type. And those things are necessary, but really what you want to identify is why am I doing this? Because that's going to be the driving force that wakes you up every morning and keeps you going. For me, it's that little young handsome man who is going to be 1 year old in a couple weeks. Give it up for my son, Legend. Yeah, because he'll be watching this at some point. I want him to know that I shouted him out. And my wife and our ability to travel, right? For me, it's about time freedom. It's about spending time with the people that I love. It's about being able to help people who are in need, and I don't have to think twice of it. It's not about me just staring at my bank account or staring at my investment account. So I had to back into what my why is so that my intentions and my actions are in alignment. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. Now, how many of you have heard of identifying a financial independence number or like identifying your target, okay? So I didn't know what people knew, so I wanted just to break down how you find your number, right? So what you want to do is you want to figure out how much money you need to live your desired lifestyle in retirement, right? So let's say you want $100,000 a year, whatever the number is. You want to take your actual monthly income number and multiply it by 12. So say if you want $5,000 a month in income, multiply that by 12, right? That's going to give you your annual number. And then ultimately, to determine your financial independence number, you would need to multiply that by 25. And what that would mean is once you had that amount of money invested, you essentially can safely withdraw 4% and never run out of money, right? So let's go with this example, $3,400 per month. And the reason why I use this number, I know that's low. Some of y'all thinking, I can't live off $3,400 a month. But I use this example because technically the median household income, right, is around $50,000 a year. But when I ask most people what their retirement number is or what they're shooting for, most people by default just say $1 million arbitrarily. Right? So I said, well, let's show them what that is. That's about $3,400 a month, 40 grand a year, which you would have to have $1 million invested in order to achieve that. Now, when I first started my career over 11 years ago, this just didn't make sense to me. I'm like, so I got to lock up $1 million in my 401k or my IRA, right? And if I do everything right, that's only going to net out $40,000 a year? It just didn't seem right, but that is the math, right? So that's when I realized that the traditional path just doesn't make sense. The 40-40-40 plan, right? You work 40 hours a week for 40 years to only live on $40,000 a year in retirement. Doesn't seem like a good deal, right? And how many of us, by show of hands, have heard the Instagram guru say, if you invest $400 a month for the next 35 years, you'll have $1 million at retirement? Anybody heard anybody say something like that? Now, here's the thing. I'm all about compound interest. I get it. But I don't know about y'all, but I'm not waiting 40 years to be free. I don't know about y'all. Right? So I kept digging. I said, if I'm going to be an advisor, I got to advocate for something that I actually believe in. I can't sit here and tell my clients, hey, I want you to invest $400 a month, and in 35 years, you'll have enough. I can't do it. So I had to figure out another way, right? Because when you think about retirement this way, it will lead you to believe that retirement is based on age. And that's not true. It's not true, right? Financial independence is based on assets, not age. So the goal is, how can I accumulate those assets faster? Which brings me to my next point, finding your method. There's two methods to achieving financial independence. And that's from accumulation, like we just talked about, right? Tucking money away, letting it grow for an extended period of time. And then there's cash flow, right? Because here's the thing. What we really care about is not necessarily the $1 million invested. What we really care about is the cash flow that number can produce, right? So then the question becomes, are there more efficient ways to produce the cash flow? Now, here's the thing. I have about 25 to 30% of my net worth is tied up in the stock market. So I'm not saying it's not good. Well, what I am saying is different things have different purposes. And the stock market is not the most efficient from a cash flow perspective. It's much more efficient from a preservation of capital, hedge against inflation, right? Purely speaking from an investing standpoint, not trading. Because when you look at the traditional roadmap, right, in order to have that $10,000 per month in cash flow, right, or actually I should say I think $5,000, right, you would need a huge portfolio size to substantiate that. So I said, well, what would it look like if we had a hybrid approach where maybe a part of our money came from cash flow producing real estate? And at this conference, I know some of y'all know about cash flow producing real estate, right? A portion of it coming from maybe a business that I own but do not run, right? So could I have ownership interest in a business that I don't have to run, but I can receive dividends from? Oftentimes you'll hear the term founder and CEO, right? And as entrepreneurs, most times we think that I have to start something, build something, run something. But the reason why that title is split up is because you can own something and not run it. CEO is a job title, right? I don't want to be the CEO of everything. I want somebody just to send me a check. You know what I'm saying? I just want to get some checks, right? And then if you have a hybrid approach, then if you still do invest in the stock market, you're going to need substantially less money because now you have money coming from different buckets, right? And that's going to speed up your timeline, right? So for example, let's look at this. This is a real world example, right? Because I'm a private equity investor as well, right? So in this example, if you were to invest $100,000 in the stock market, right, and you wanted to use that money to produce cash flow, that $100,000 is only going to produce about $4,000 annually, right? It's just the way it works if you do the safe withdrawal rate. Now, conversely, that same $100,000 that I invested in a business that I have an ownership interest in but I do not run, right, it's paying me $14,000 a year in cash flow, right? So 3.5 times more cash flow for the same exact amount of money. So what I looked at is like, okay, well, I can either, one, be able to invest the same amount of money and get 3 times the cash flow, or I can invest a third of the amount of money and get the same cash flow that I would investing in the stock market. So I was able to see a path to where I could get about 300% more cash flow by diversifying the way in which my money was invested, okay? But as we get into that, I want you guys to understand the different levers of leverage, right? The levers of leverage, right, that you need in order to achieve that target. Because I want to give you guys a tactical plan and a tactical approach on how to do this. So in the beginning of the pandemic, right, I was at home, couldn't really work out. And just like everybody else, I was eating snacks, man. I was in the kitchen, I was in the pantry. And I was like, man, I can't, just because I can't go to the gym, I can't not try to be healthy, right? I got to figure this out. So I started doing this thing called counting macronutrients. And the concept with that is there's so many different nutrients, but if you can get 3 right, if you can get those 3 right, you probably can hit your target, right? And those 3 are proteins, fats, and carbs. So I said, what if I could simplify personal finance in a way where there's three main things. If you get those three things right, that you'll probably be okay. And I realized that's what you make, how you manage the money that you make, and ultimately how you decide to maximize it through investing, okay? Because if you can do those three things together in a symbiotic relationship, you can become financially untouchable, okay? So what does that boil down to? Number one, you have to have a systematic and predictable way of hitting your income and revenue target, right? So that you can have the money that you need to allocate towards building wealth in the first place. Because here's the truth. I don't care if you're the best investor in the world and you can get 100% return. You can beat the S&P by 10x. 100% return on $100 is still just $100, right? Number two, having a money management machine that will eliminate cash flow leaks and help you have ultimate control over your money. By show of hands, how many of you have logged into your online banking on a Tuesday? You're a little nervous because you didn't know what you was going to see, right? It's like back in the day when you were in school and the grades came out and you kind of was trying to cover up the screen a little bit. We all been there before? I've been there before, back in the day, right? So you got to have a cash. The reason why you're feeling that way is because you don't have a cash flow plan, right? You're not consistently measuring where your money is going, right? You have to have that because you can make all the money in the world, but we have countless stories of athletes, entertainers, and everyday people who made a ton of money, but it ended up getting lost by the wayside, right? Because they didn't have a money management machine. And then last but not least, you have to know exactly where and how to invest your money so that it can work on your behalf. Because as we all have famously heard the quote, if you don't figure out how to make your money work for you, then you'll have to work for the rest of your life, okay? Building wealth is important, but let's not forget to get rich. Now, that's an unpopular opinion, right? It's an unpopular opinion. I know, because some people are like, it doesn't matter about how much money. Yes, it does. It does matter how much money you make. It does. I'm not going to hold you. It does. And if you're in this room, you are all more than capable. You're the people that get it. It's a Saturday, right? Early in the year. You could be doing anything in the world, but you're here with me, right? So I know that you guys have the capability to get, because it makes it easier. I'm not going to lie. It just makes it that much easier. I'm not going to lie, okay? So, funny story. If you can't tell by my last name, right? I was born here. My mom was born here, but my dad is from Ghana, right? Any West Africans in the room? Anybody? Hey, right? So I was born here, so I didn't get I actually wanted the accent. I was like, dang, man, I wanted the accent, man. So I didn't get the benefit of having the accent that my dad had. He passed away back in 2017, and so I went back to Ghana for the funeral, and I got a chance to meet one of my uncles I never met. And so I'm going to try to relay the message like he relayed to me on why he became an entrepreneur, okay? So bear with me. Again, I don't got the accent. He said, you know why I became an entrepreneur? It's because my take-home pay cannot take me home. I said, well, yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Makes sense. He said, I wasn't making enough money. I was looking at the month, and I was looking about how much money I had, and the money was running out before the month was here, right? So he said, I got to do something. So he became an entrepreneur, right? So this paradigm shift here completely changed my perspective on wealth building. Wealth is made through concentration. It's preserved through diversification. How rich people, or how people in general make their money, is different from how they invest their money. So here's what happens. We hear people talking about 7 streams. Like, I got 7 streams of income. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. No. Because then that's gonna take away from the why we talked about earlier, the time freedom piece, right? I don't want to be hustling and having 5, 6, 7, 8 things going on, right? I need time, right? So wealth is made through concentration. It's preserved through diversification. Now, here's the thing. You don't have to take my word for it, right? I'm gonna show you why in a second. But here is the entrepreneur blueprint to building wealth. Number one is you have to have a high-income skill set, right? You have to be able to add value to the world to where people are willing to pay you for that value, period. The analogy I always like to use is really simple, is let's just say I was a barber, but I got really good. I'm a celebrity barber. I'm cutting Diddy's hair or something, right? At the end of the day, that's great. Diddy might pay me $1,000 a haircut, but there's still only so many hours in a day. So what has to happen next? I have to turn that high-income skill set into a scalable business, right? Where people or systems make me money. Because with the high-income skill set, you make you money, which is great. You should always have that. But then how can I turn that into a scalable business where people or systems make me money? Maybe I open a barbershop. In today's day and age, maybe I have a program on how to become a celebrity barber. That seems to be the thing, right? And then last but not least, then your money makes you money, right? By investing in high return assets. And I'm not saying these things can't happen in tandem, but these are the three things you have to get right in order to build wealth, right? So let's look at three people I would say probably are pretty wealthy, right? Mark Zuckerberg, the majority of his wealth, right, let's say about 60% is tied to his interest in Facebook. Elon Musk, about 60% is tied to his interest in his companies. And Jeff Bezos, about 77% of his wealth is tied to his interest in Amazon, his companies, right? So again, wealth is made through concentration, right? Rich people do the right things. Wealthy people own the right things. Another paradigm shift I had. I'm gonna say that one more time. Rich people do the right things. Wealthy people own the right things. Because you could be rich, right? But the challenge with being rich is I gotta show up to keep being rich. But when you're wealthy, you ain't gotta show up. The money's coming regardless, right? Because you own the right things. The money is working on your behalf. And understanding the difference between compensation and equity is key. So going back to these three gentlemen, right? Jeff Bezos, net worth, as of this slide, obviously, Jeff Bezos, net worth, $177 billion. His annual salary from Amazon, right, in 2020 was about $81,000. Some of y'all make more than Jeff Bezos from a salary perspective, right? Mark Zuckerberg, his salary was $1 in 2020. Elon Musk, his salary was $23,000 in 2019 and $56,000 in 2018, right? That's what their salary was, right? Their compensation, which is taxed at the highest bracket, right? But what they knew is I don't want most of my money to come from my salary. I want most of my money to come from the assets that I own, right? So if you're an entrepreneur, one of the things you want to start thinking about is how can I turn my business into an asset that I own instead of a business that I run, or more realistically, runs you. Because even if you don't have the desire to sell it, if you want that time freedom, you're gonna have to create an infrastructure that allows you, right, to be an owner of the business instead of running the business. And so this is kind of the path to doing so. I'm on a tight timeline, so y'all might see me speed it up towards we get towards the end, but I promise I'll find a way to make sure everybody gets the slides, okay? All right, so I told you it's easier if you get rich, right? So let's say in a traditional example, a person might make $50,000 a year, right? But instead of making 50, maybe you make 100. Right now, this gives you more wiggle room to invest, right? So instead of investing $4,800 a year, now you can invest, let's say, $20,000 a year. And what I did to arrive at that is if I'm making double the money, right, I should be able to increase my savings rate, right, by 20%. In the original example, my saving rate's about 10%. So what happens if I raise it to 20, but I'm making twice the money, right? Now I can invest 4 times the amount of money just because I'm making more, right? The problem with most people is lifestyle creep, so it doesn't always happen. But if you were able to do this, you can become financially independent in 22 years instead of 40 years, right? So just off this one strategy alone, making more and allocating more, you can become financially independent faster, right? So let's look at some examples. If you make $50K a year and you save 10% of your income to invest, right, you can invest about $5,000 a year, which will put you on the 40-40-40 plan. If you make $100,000 a year and you can have a savings rate of about 20%, meaning you can invest $20,000, you'll be able to cut that timeline down to 22 years. If you make $250,000 a year and then able to increase your savings rate to 30%, you can invest $75,000 a year, which will cut that timeline down to 10 years. And of course, if you make $500,000, right, and you're able to save 40% of your income, then you can cut that target down to 4.5 years. So whether you believe that's possible or not, the reality is the good thing about finance is it's just numbers. So we don't have to be emotional about it, right? And the numbers tell me that I don't have to wait 30, 40 years to do this. I just have to make more and allocate more to hit my target faster. Now here's the problem, right? Problem number one is somebody in this room, hopefully not when they leave this room, but right now, there might be a limiting belief on being able to make that amount of money. It's like, man, I can't. What am I going to do to make $500,000 a year, $250,000 a year? I'm hoping there's nobody in the room. But somebody has or had that limiting belief. Problem number 2 is the inability to sacrifice for what you want most. Right? Because if you can identify that why that I keep going back to, and you know that, man, if I can just stay down till I come up, as they say, I can have the desired lifestyle that I want. Okay? Wealth is the gap between your income and your ego. Wealth is the gap between your income and your ego. A lot of the consumer decisions that we are making are predicated off of what the other person's gonna think. I'm really gonna stunt on them with this one, right? But the reality is, on the first of the month, nobody's sending you no money to pay that mortgage. Nobody's sending you no money to pay that car note. No one's sending you no money to pay off that credit card bill. So make sure that as you make these efforts to make more money, that you identify and remember why you're doing this. You're doing it for you. You're doing it for your peace of mind. You're doing it for your legacy. You're doing it for your freedom, right? Nobody else's. Now, as a fiduciary, I got to let you know all your options, but I'm giving a disclaimer. This one is not recommended. You can also get to your target faster by decreasing your lifestyle expenses. Now, here's the thing. There's a difference between frugality and scarcity, okay? There's a difference between frugality and scarcity. Frugality is like, okay, I'm making sound financial decisions. Scarcity is you lack the abundance mindset. You think that money is scarce. Like it ain't, I got to hold on to it because it's not coming back to me. They literally print the stuff. You just got to go and get it, right? So I'm going to breeze through this one because that's not even my recommended option. But let's just say, right, in the original example, we assume that you're making $50,000 a year, and so you want about $50,000 in retirement. But let's just say you're like, I could live off 25, right? If I really needed to, I could live off 25. If you could live off 25, but you still invested the same amount of money leading up to retirement, then you could get there faster because you would need less money in order to cover your retirement expenses, right? It'll get you there 6 years faster. Not much faster, but 6 years faster. Again, not recommending this option, but I just want to share everything with you. Of course, you can improve your returns, right? So if you're able to get higher yielding returns, maybe 12% instead of 7%, right? Because you really understand how the market works, so you hire somebody that does, then naturally that's going to help you get to your target faster, right? Again, I'm sorry for speeding through this, but I want to be respectful of everybody's time. All right, so let's recap really quick. Standard path is 40 years. If you simply just spend less or have a need for less money in retirement, that's 34 years to get there. If you improve your returns, that's about 30 years. But if you make more and invest more, you can get there in 22 years. Now, how fast you hit the goal is really going to be dependent upon, right, the variables that you decide to blend together to get to that target, okay? Now, this strategy that we just talked about will help you get there 6 to 18 years faster, right, just depending upon which route you take. But what I'm about to share with you, if I have enough time, will get you there even faster, and it's a game changer. And this is the philosophy that I abide by and what I do, okay? All right, so the first thing we want to do is we want to understand, what do banks do? Banks store your money, they help you facilitate transactions, they lend out money, and they do something called interest rate arbitrage, which is basically just means they give you 1% of your money, they're probably making 5 or 6, right? The entire economy is based upon a very simple premise: a buyer, a builder, and a broker. Somebody has a technical know-how to make the thing, right? The builder, somebody wants to buy it and consume it or invest in it, and then someone has to connect the dots of both people. Airbnb, great example. Airbnb doesn't own any houses. They connect the people who own the house with the person who wants to stay in the house, and they are right there in the middle, and they collect some money off of that, right? Mercedes, they find people in other countries and other places that manufacture their cars. They just become the brand. They can put a premium on top of it. They sell it to you and I, right? And they make up the difference. And I could go on and on and on about this, but everywhere you look in the economy, that's how it works. It's just arbitrage at the end of the day, right? If you have a T-shirt business, you get it from the wholesale person for $3, you sell your shirt for $20, right? You make the difference. It's all around us. That's how the economy works, okay? So step one, there's a builder who has the lowest cost, right? Step 2 is the broker who identifies the difference between what they can pay and what is the market value. And step 3, a buyer who wants to consume or use the product, right? That's the process. And so when you look at the banking system, same thing. You need a house, what happens? There's somebody who actually developed the house, right? They want to sell it to you. You borrow money from the bank to buy the house, right? That money goes to the developer. The developer's not putting the money under his mattress. What is he doing? Putting it right back in the bank. Genius business model, right? That's how it works in every scenario, whether it's a car, whether it's a loan for your business, whatever the case may be, that's how it works, okay? So how can you become the bank is the question. Well, of this list, how can I facilitate storage, transactions, lending, and interest rate arbitrage? We're going to go through 3 really quick examples. Now, again, I can look at the time right now, and I can already know that I'm probably not going to be able to get through all of this. So let's try to take notes as much as we can, and I'll be here for a while to explain the things I'm not able to cover. Let's look at 3 people. Derek, debt-free Derek, Byron the borrower, and Lisa the leverager, okay? Debt-free Derek loves Dave Ramsey. I don't owe nobody nothing, right? That's good. The challenge with debt-free Derek, though, he saves, and whenever he needs money to buy something, he buys it, and he starts back at ground zero and does it all over again, right? Then we got Byron the borrower, where he's like, man, F it, we ball, right? I don't care. I'm borrowing, I'm going to get what I want. So he borrows, so he's in a hole from day one, and then he's paying back interest, right? And then eventually, right when he's about to pay off the car, he got to do it all over again anyway, right? Then you got Lisa, the leverager. So kind of similar to debt-free Derek in the sense that she is saving and she is investing. The difference is instead of her just liquidating the amount of money that she has to go buy a house or to buy the car, she leverages her assets, the value of her assets, right, to be able to go acquire other ones, which is super powerful because then you get the benefit of uninterrupted interest. Okay? All right, so let's look at 3 main markets here, right? Real estate, public markets, and private markets. And we talked about this a little bit earlier, right? So if these are 3 markets that you have to choose from, the ideal scenario is that if I own assets in 1, 2, or even all 3 of these, I don't want to have to sell these assets. I want to be able to leverage those assets to supercharge my ability to build wealth, okay? And so what that would look like is I invest in high-quality assets, and instead of selling them when I need them to do something else, right, I borrow against those assets, and then that liquid capital gives me the ability to buy other assets, which is how you can get to your financial independence target much faster because now you have assets that are still growing. You leverage those assets to buy more, and that's how you can keep the party going, okay? Now, I do recommend that people leverage the stock market in order to facilitate this. You might have heard people talk about like becoming your own bank through like life insurance, and I'm an advocate of that as well. What I realize is the stock market is a hyper-efficient way to do this as well, okay? Because with real estate, even though I'm a big fan of it, right, you do have to have good credit, right, usually, right? You have to have capital. Sometimes there's competition in the markets, and of course, there's a management component. With business, you have to have a proven product or service, startup capital, and management and staffing, right? And with the stock market, you can literally get started in just a few minutes, okay? Okay, cool. So I'm getting the wrap-up music. So guys, I'm going to go through this really, really fast. 1 minute, okay? So we've already found your number. We already know what your financial independence number is, right? We already know what the traditional path is of investing the money for 40 years and then eventually having $1 million, right? But if you are able to invest that money and then borrow against the value of your portfolio, now you can do things like buying cash flow producing assets, right? And with those assets, you now can produce cash flow. So instead of having to wait 30, 35, 40 years to hit your number, now you can hit that target a lot faster because you have cash flow coming from assets while still allowing your other assets to appreciate, right? Now, again, I'm sorry, I don't have time to go through this example, but I'll promise everybody will get the slides, okay? I just want to go to the end here. Sorry about this. All right. So the whole premise is this. At the end of the day, you have a desired target in mind, of achieving financial independence. And your goal is to be able to get there as expeditiously as possible. And when you take the power of leveraging assets that are appreciating to buy cash flow producing assets that can produce income today, then you're able to get to your target 2 to 3 times faster. And the quicker you get to your dream life, the longer you have to enjoy it. Thank you.